Tomorrow on ABC's World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. New England's 10,000 fishermen are being shut out by more boats, fewer fish, and foreign competition. Tomorrow.
Topping the news tonight, a push here at the state capitol to cut and to simplify taxes as Governor Rudy Perpich delivers his first prime-time State of the State address. We'll have a report for you in a moment.
We will also take you live to the Ordway for Arthur Ballott's impressions of the first opera presented there tonight. We'll tell you about a stabbing during a fight today at St. Paul Central High School. We will have T. Eugene Thompson's plea before the Minnesota Supreme Court today. And Jason Davis will be live via New Star 5 at the Mushers' next checkpoint in the John Beargrease Sled Dog Marathon. And those stories and much more are next on the Eyewitness News Update.
When a leader whirls away, threatens what we are today, we're with you. When dreams are shattered or when they come true, we're with you. When distant faces leave you wanting to touch, to care. We're with you.
Now, Cyndy Brucato, Stan Turner, Dennis Feltgen, and Bob Bruce. This is the Eyewitness News Update.
Tonight in St. Paul, Governor Rudy Perpich offered his views on the state of the state before a packed House chamber at the state capitol, the first ever nighttime State of the State address. Good evening, everyone. Judging from what the governor says, he feels that the state of the state is pretty good and improving. Stan Turner is standing by live at the state capitol after listening to the speech and, of course, hearing the reaction. Stan?
Well, it's interesting, Cindy. I can tell you this, that there's as much conversation there was around here before the place emptied out tonight about the tone of the speech, the cosmetic value of the speech tonight, that the governor seemed very relaxed, very friendly, and went over very well. Of course, they'll be talking about the substance as well. It was indeed an upbeat speech tonight, as the governor really gave us a review in part of the good things that have happened during the first 2 years of his term so far, once we got past that severe budget crisis back in '82.
Our state bank account is in the black instead of the red. We are regaining our top credit ratings, and we have a surplus in place of a deficit. And this month, we shall pay off all of our last outstanding loan. The turnaround has been one of the most dramatic and impressive in the nation.
And he outlined 4 areas for improvement, namely in taxes, spending, education, and foreign trade, issues that he pushed hard his first 2 years in office. Now, for more on what the governor had to say to the state of Minnesota tonight, we turn now to our government specialist, Lindsay Strand, high up there in the gallery of the Minnesota House Chambers. Lindsay?
Well, Stan, you said it right at the beginning. This really was a speech in which Rudy Perpich took a page out of the Public Relations Handbook of Ronald Reagan. He spoke in very general terms tonight. He included many personal stories. He used props and he used reading aids, and in general, it was a very overall upbeat speech.
The state of the state is greatly improved and getting better.
Governor Perpich pointed with pride to the state's improved economy in the first 2 years of his term, and then Perpich outlined his blueprint for the 3rd year.
Our first priority and first action must be a major reduction in personal income taxes. Our plan will save Minnesotans $604 million and will drop our maximum tax rate from 16% to 9.9%.
Perpich used props tonight to make his point on the need for income tax simplification. He wants just one tax form to replace the current 19. His $604 million tax cut would drop Minnesota's national income tax ranking from 2nd to 6th. On the spending side of the equation, he promised a state budget with average spending increases of less than 6%. Requested a $500 million budget reserve, and announced support of a constitutional amendment requiring a balanced federal budget.
Minnesota and other states are required to balance their budget, and I ask you, why not the federal government?
The remainder of the 20-minute speech underscored the themes of the Perpich administration, namely strengthening the state economy through improved education and creating jobs through international trade.
I will travel and continue to travel to any community in this state, any corner, to any city in this nation, any corner of the world to bring jobs to Minnesota.
Tonight, the governor did not just talk about high tech, but put a bit of it to use. He became the first governor in the state to abandon the hard copy of his text for a teleprompter. It freed up the nearsighted governor to focus on the intent of the message, not just the words. And Perpich believes it is the best speech he has ever delivered. Lindsay Strand, Channel 5 Eyewitness News.
This is Greg Stone. Governor Perpich unveiled a sweeping and revolutionary plan tonight that calls for a 10% cut in taxes. His scheme also simplifies tax returns, replacing the current thicket of forms with a one-page form that can be filled out by almost anyone in just 15 minutes. The State Revenue Department claims that a typical couple with 2 children, the husband perhaps a construction worker, the wife may be a part-time typist, with combined income of $31,000 would pay almost $300 less in state taxes. The plan gives in some areas and takes away in others. For instance, IRA contributions would be deductible for state tax purposes, whereas federal income taxes would not be.
The Perpich tax plan has one key disadvantage that could prove to be a political liability. It appears to favor the rich. 87% of those who make between $50,000 and $100,000 a year would end up paying less to the state.
On the other hand, only 62% of those who make $20,000 to $30,000 a year would get a tax break, and 37% of them would suffer an increase. That's the way the complicated combination of benefits and new charges would play out. Still unbalanced, the average reduction would be $266, so the governor would put more money in many pockets. Greg Stone, Channel 5, Eyewitness News.
Thank you, Greg. So it develops that after 2 years, the governor has finally given his political adversaries in both houses something they can live with, at least in part. His desire to cut taxes and control spending was applauded by leaders of both parties, as Frank Mann reports.
Issue number 1. Did Rudy Perpich satisfy his Republican opponent? Answer, probably yes.
Well, it was a pretty Republican speech, but then he always gives a Republican speech.
There were a lot of items in the speech that certainly were in tune with the Republican majority agenda.
Well, I thought it was a very upbeat speech. I think it's a good way to get the session going. It was very positive.
Issue number 2. Did Republicans think Perpich was talking in too many generalities? Answer, again, probably yes. Were there enough specifics for you?
Well, no, not to really get into.
So far, he's talked about a lot of proposals in general kinds of terms. We want to see the bills.
According to Republicans, 3 of his 4 main points were consistent with what the GOP has been asking for these last 4 years. Cut taxes, control spending, and make education a big priority. Republicans think his budget reserve of $500 million is way too much, and his support of a balanced federal budget, well, you won't get any gripes from conservatives. What about the DFLers? No. Perpich certainly didn't get any flack for his desire to cut taxes. The only trouble is he may have some difficulty getting this tax plan passed as written.
Even if it was, a chapter out of the Bible, we'd probably want to make amendments to it.
One amendment is bound to be one allowing Minnesotans to deduct their federal income taxes, something absent from the present Perpich plan.
We believe one should tax real income and not tax the taxes that the federal government takes from your paycheck before you even see it.
And Republicans agree that a tax reform plan has to help the middle-income taxpayers. Under the plan right now, more than 1/3 of all wage earners in the $20,000 to $30,000 a year bracket face a possible tax increase. Frank Mann, Channel 5 Eyewitness News, St. Paul.
And it's not just the politicians who haunt these Capitol corridors who are really have an interest in the governor's message tonight, his State of the State address. Standing by live now at the Ordway Theater, the new one just a couple blocks from here, is St. Paul Mayor George Latimer, attending the opera opening tonight, but kind enough to offer some comments. Good evening, Mayor Latimer.
Good evening, Stan.
Well, I want to ask you, the amount of individual income tax cuts proposed by the governor seems below that which the Tax Study Commission you headed is recommending. Can you buy it? Can you go with it? Is there room for compromise?
Oh, yeah. I think it would be quibbling to talk about whether $600 million is enough or not. The message was a great message. It was well delivered. He hit the major highlights. He wasn't offering a budget. He wasn't offering a bill for passage. He was giving a direction for the state. It was eloquent. It was perfectly done. I have no criticism whatever. He was a little foolish about the constitutional amendment, but on a night like this, you can forgive a very fine governor for a little foolishness.
All right, a lot of bouquets you're throwing at the governor there. That seems to be the consensus around here. Even some Republicans, as you might have heard, like what they heard tonight in part anyway. That would seem to indicate that one who might want to oppose the governor for the governor's office in a couple of years might have a steep hill to climb. It's been said that maybe you're interested. What do you think now?
Oh, I don't feel any differently. My first job is to decide if the people will accept me, whether or not I want to run again as mayor, Stan. And after I cross that bridge, then I'll think about the future beyond that. But right now I'm having an awful lot of fun. And come on down to the Ordway and get away from that Capitol. It's more fun here.
I'd like that. I envy you. Thank you very much, Mayor George Latimer. We'll take a break here now at the state capitol. I'll be back later with the governor's full State of the State primetime address, which he delivered here with additional comment and reaction. So right now, let's go back to the studio, and Cindy, we'll check in with you a bit later then.
You're sure you're not going to run down to the Ordway for a little post-opera
Yes, I am.
tete-a-tete?
I forgot my tux.
Okay, we will see you a little bit later, Stan. Now, in the rest of the day's news, no laughing matter at all. A fight and a stabbing today at St. Paul Central High School. We'll have that story. We'll also go to Sauk Center, where residents today mourned 2 firefighters. But coming up next, Jason Davis along the North Shore with the latest on the sled dog race. Please stay tuned.
Who responds to your business communication needs at AT&T? At Norstan, I do. We tailor our Roam computerized telephones to your exact specifications. And we support your Roam system with over a decade of design, installation, and service experience. So try calling the president of AT&T. Then call me. See who responds first.
Norstan Communication Systems for revolutionary results from evolutionary equipment.
We're not there yet. We're not? I don't understand. No, they didn't choose this bank for solutions they can get across the street. Gotta keep working.
At the business banks, we don't give you pat answers. We keep looking until we find the creative solution that's tailored to your business. In fact, there's only one place where you can expect creative solutions. The First Banks. We are the business banks, where your business belongs.
We're on our way to a volume goal of 10,000 sales in 1985. Fast start prices on 1,000 front and four-wheel drives at Towsley Ford, Subaru, White Bear Lake.
Well, right now it is about the halfway point of the John Beargrease Sled Dog Marathon along the North Shore of Lake Superior. Right now, Jason Davis and our News Star 5 crew are lodged at Devil's Track, just a little bit north of Grand Marais. We go to Jason now live via News Star 5 for a report on the mushers as they're mushing right at this moment. Jason?
Well, Cindy, the race is taking its toll. Already at least 2 teams have dropped out, and many of the others are resting themselves and their dogs way back on the trail. It's over 50 hours into the race, and there's a long way yet to go.
I hear you well, so I pass.
As it got dark tonight, most of the drivers decided to rest, themselves and their dogs. At the Sawbill Trail, about 30 miles from here, a checkpoint gave the front runners time to think about their next move. Food for themselves and their dogs had to be prepared, and decisions made about strategy. At least one team dropped out at this point, leaving a field now of 22. One of the casualties is Bill Smith from Montana, who was literally struck blind on the trail last night. He says his lead dog saved his life by finding his own way along the trail for 5 hours. Smith's eyes had frozen in the bitter wind and snow, and he ended up on his knees feeling his way along the trail.
But I just trusted my lead dog, and we went like this for about 5 hours.
5 hours, and you could hardly see the...
I couldn't see the 2 dogs in front and immediately in front of my sled.
At that point, Smith, who could hardly see a hand in front of his face, was still determined to carry on.
I plan to get out of here in 2 hours.
Bill Smith finally gave up during the day. There are 4 women in this grueling race. When Montana musher Laurie Beckstrom pulled into Finland checkpoint 3rd from last, she said she was disappointed but not surprised. She'd been very lonely.
I'm out there all by myself, so...
Well, you're not last in, as I understand it.
No, but I haven't seen a soul out there for 80 miles.
Cindy, all the teams have to rest at Grand Marais, 10 miles down the track here, for a mandatory 8 hours. They rest. We'll have to take pictures of them resting. We won't get much rest.
You know, Jason, we were just talking about this in the studio. We aren't actually seeing the racing itself, but I imagine you cannot get where those sleds are right now. Is that correct?
The difficulty is finding them. You were talking about 200 miles of trail and, you know, 20 sled dogs, 20 dog sledders, I should say. And finding them is really tricky. And also, we can't bother them with snowmobiles too much.
Right. That would be the only way to get in there. Okay, thank you, Jason. We will check with you tomorrow night. You might find the local driving, we should say, a little bit like sledding tonight. That light but steady snow we've been getting is turning the roads slippery. We have had reports that traffic on many roadways and freeways is moving very slowly, advisedly so. so move slowly yourself and act cautiously. And it's still...
I'll attest to that. It was no picnic going out to dinner tonight.
No, surprisingly slippery, and it's still coming down a little bit.
It's still coming down, but the highways are slick tonight. Things will improve a lot quicker tonight than they did from what happened starting 10 years ago tonight. No doubt about that. It's called the blizzard of the century. At 7 o'clock on the night of the 10th, there was a storm so intense it set a new low-pressure record at Rochester. 7 hours later, it raced to Duluth and was even stronger. And by then, it was a full-scale blizzard, and in less than a day, it left up to a foot of snow in eastern Minnesota and western Wisconsin, with 1 to 2 feet in the western part of Minnesota. The snowplows were pulled off the highways, unable to battle the zero visibility and 50-mile-per-hour winds. Snowdrifts were as high as 20 feet. The storm didn't ease up until the morning of the 12th, and it took 11 days to clear up some areas. 35 deaths were attributed to the storm, with over $14 million in damage. Indeed, this is the blizzard of the century. Now, we've had light snow over the last couple of days, but when you total everything up, we're up to about 4 inches, and believe me, you're not going to need a little dust buster in the morning. You're going to need a snow shovel because the sidewalks are getting loaded with snow. And tonight on KSTP's Color Radar, light snow continues solid across the entire 7-county metropolitan area and also across the river in western Wisconsin, but it is showing signs now beginning to taper off to the northwest of us, and as the midnight hour approaches and we get into the wee hours of the morning, conditions will improve. You may see some flurries in the morning, but I think all in all, things are going to be getting better. The snow shovel is going to have to be used by folks in the eastern half of the country because that's where that winter storm is going, but it is weakening, and there's just a couple of inches of snow being dropped in the mountains from, say, Kentucky on up into the Adirondacks of New York. But again, things are improving. Slow. High pressure is going to take over our weather once again, and you know what that means. It's going to be getting colder. This is another chunk of Arctic air which has broken off the ice cap and is moving right down towards the 5-state area, and temperatures once again are going to go below zero by tomorrow night. High temperatures today clearly point out that Arctic air mass to our north, where highs were below zero throughout much of the central part of Canada. Freezing temperatures today dipping well down into Texas. However, the southeast remain warm, 60s and 70s, but nobody had 80s. If you've been following our weather program over the last couple of days, you know that things have been real rough in Europe over the last week or so. How rough? Well, we've talked about the snow, but how about the cold? Temperatures in the last 48 hours have been below zero from Siberia, where you would expect it, but all the way down to Paris, France. This is below zero. And below freezing temperatures were felt way down into the middle part of Italy. That's strange. In the almanac, nothing strange there. Our high today was, our current temperature is 18 with a dew point of 12, humidity 77%, pressure's rising. We have light snow, and in that almanac, the high today was 22, low was 15, a lot better than Europe, and snowfall over 2.5 inches for today alone. The weather map for tomorrow shows the clouds beginning to break up across eastern Minnesota, and that means the snow will be moving out of the east. The Arctic high will be building in, though, and that's going to mean an influx of colder air, with temperatures tomorrow in southern Minnesota and western Wisconsin just barely into the teens. The forecast for tonight in detail calls for the light snow ending after midnight, lows of 5 to 10 above, with the wind barely blowing. But tomorrow the wind's going to pick up with wind chills below zero, highs of 10 to 15 as the skies gradually become partly cloudy. Tomorrow night, clear, colder, 0 to 10 below. Saturday, mostly sunny, cold, 13 to 19. Out on a limb with a warming trend expected for Monday through Wednesday. Maybe some chance of snow on Monday, but in general, we do have a warm-up after another cold shot.
You know, 10 years ago, I arrived at WDIO-TV in Duluth for my first TV news reporting job.
And you remember it.
And boy, I'd never seen so much snow before.
Probably won't for a long time.
I hope not. In other news tonight, the state of Wisconsin has taken its case to the courts again, attempting to halt nuclear waste shipments from NSP's Monticello plant. A hazardous waste official testified today that if there were an accident, the rugged landscape surrounding the railroad tracks would hinder emergency rescue teams. NSP in Wisconsin will be back in court next Wednesday for final arguments in the temporary injunction proceedings. In a moment, T. Eugene Thompson goes to court, the Supreme Court, for readmission to the bar, and Arthur Ballot offers his report live on the opera's debut at the Ordway. That's next on the Update.
The Great Plays from Glory Days is brought to you by Counter, your best corn insecticide for conservation tillage.
Super Bowl 12. More than 100 million television viewers, the largest audience ever to watch a sporting event. Witness Butch Johnson's spectacular touchdown reception as the Dallas Cowboys defeat the Denver Broncos 27-10.
There's a complex of pests out there waiting to attack your corn crop. And you need protection that's best for conservation tillage. Counter Systemic Insecticide Nematicide cuts through the clutter to concentrate protection in furrow for the broadest spectrum control you can get. Seed Safe Counter works on contact and systemically for a strong, healthy stand. Counter, banded or in furrow, best for conservation tillage, guaranteed.
Boy, it's great to be on vacation.
Yeah, and we never go on vacation without Hertz.
I wouldn't risk my vacation with an unreliable rent-a-car company.
And Hertz affordable weekly rates save me money.
But people say Hertz is more reliable.
But now, Hertz costs less money.
Arnie, more reliable.
Less money.
Arnold, more reliable.
Less money.
Hertz Affordable Hawaii, only $99 a week. Now, the rent-a-car company that gives you more is less.
Less money.
Boy, they let anybody in this place.
These guys are lighting up.
A fight between students just outside of Central High School in St. Paul led to a stabbing today, and 2 police officers assigned to work at the St. Paul school are trying to determine what happened. They say that one student, 18-year-old Tom Bitterman, who was either fighting or trying to break up a fight, ended up getting stabbed in the left shoulder. And students and school officials are quite concerned. There's been an increase of violent incidents at the high school. Just prior to today's stabbing, 4 juveniles were arrested for assaulting a student in the hallway.
Any speculation on what it is, or why, or what's prompted some of this?
No, I wish I did. If I did, perhaps I could supply some better solutions to the problem. Right now, we're leaning heavily on control and prevention.
The stabbing victim was treated at Midway Hospital in St. Paul and was released tonight. State investigators today laid the blame on faulty equipment for that construction elevator accident last month. 3 workers were killed when the elevator dropped suddenly from the 7th floor at a site in St. Louis Park. The investigation has revealed that a couple of safety switches that should have stopped the elevator's upward movement did not work, and safety hooks on the elevator failed to stop the elevator from rising above the mast, causing it to go off track and drop to the ground. Assigning the blame for the accident is no easy matter. A number of lawsuits is likely. But state and federal investigators cannot say yet what caused the fire in Sauk Center on Monday that killed 2 volunteer firefighters. This afternoon, those 2